Hello, BookTube. It's time to do a tag, and I'll upload this for Tag Tuesday. I was tagged, it's back on the 10th, by Steve Donahue, the summer school book tag. And it was created by Doris at Aldi Books. And there are, 9 questions, and then the 10th prompt is a a tag uh, question type. So let's get right into it. And I promise to tell the truth. Well, mostly for these. The last one I did was 50 questions, and there might have been a few stretching of truth there. But let's see how we go with this one. Um, Language arts. Tell us about a book you were assigned to read in school. There were a number that stand out, and for different reasons. I suppose the first was I was out of school for quite a while. I had actually quit school on what they called early school leave when I was 15, and then went back when I was 20 or 21. 21, I think. So I had some catching up to do. I skipped a few grades, but so I was older than everybody else in the class, so that wasn't the best. But I had a lot more experience in sort of life and things. English class I found interesting, and in this case it was Macbeth that was assigned to us, and I think that might have been the first Shakespeare that I actually read. It probably was. But then to get caught up on things, well, I enjoyed it. I did well with it. To catch up on things, I decided to do a summer school to catch up on the English. Do summer school, and guess what book they assigned? It was Macbeth again. So that was a bit of a breeze. So I read it for the second time or third time. And then I went to another school for the following school year, and guess what book they assigned was Macbeth. So I was well versed with it by the time I was done there. There's two other occasions. There was Grapes of Wrath that was assigned. I enjoyed it. I know it's a sort of love or hate book for a lot of people, but I really really enjoyed it. But I made a mistake with the teacher because he would go on and have several talks of who the central character was. So he would go on and on and on about character. And then at the end of this, he says, write an essay on who you think is the central character. So, me being stupid, I did not choose the one he talked about. I chose someone else, but I wrote a damn good essay and backed it up. But he did not like it because I did not agree with him. So that was fun. The other one was a was F. Scott Fitzgerald's. It always escapes my mind. I'm gonna have to actually look that up because I don't know why. I did not like the book, but it always escapes my mind, and it's because I think I had a bad experience with it in many ways. Um, my phone internet is frozen. Um, it's the one about the Jazz Age. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, and my phone is frozen. But anyway, we were supposed to get into groups and talk about the symbolism of something in the in the story, and yeah, still, oh, there it goes. Let me just let's see. I'll recognize this as I don't know why I always. Uh, Let's go to the Wikipedia article. I don't know. It's just not popping up quickly. I know he wrote a lot about the Jazz Age, but it's the big popular one. And why I can't see it here is driving me nuts here. Select the list of works. That should be it here. Great Gatsby. That's it. Okay. Now we were assigned to a group to sort of, well, we read the book and to make a presentation on the symbolism of something in the book. So I remember something about ash heaps or something like that. So I proposed an idea, and everybody sort of thought, "Oh, yeah, that's fantastic." So we did this. Again, it was not the approved thing the teacher wanted to hear, so we didn't do too well. So I had very, very bad taste in my mouth from sort of English classes because of that. Because all they seemed to want was one thing, and if it wasn't that, then you failed, basically. So I had very, very bad taste of English in that way for that. And the thing was that everything we backed up, and I had a friend at that time who taught that book in university, and I gave her the essay, and she said, "Wow, that was fantastic." She would have passed that at a university level course, even though it's not the recommended or view of the symbolism. But I backed everything up from the book, and it was something a little different. So she said, it was well done. But anyway, so let's move on to the next one. Number 2, math. When will I ever use this again? Yeah, I never really got along well with math. I did some physics classes and some biology classes that required math, but all I had to do was just learn the equations, and I spent the time to learn those. But, trigonometry, any of that kind of stuff, algebra, wouldn't have a clue. Now, book-wise, though, when will I ever use this again? I suppose that's a lot of them. I'll read a book that I really, really like. If it's not in a subject that I continually read in, I might say, well, when will I ever use this again? But I sometimes do. As time goes on, I'll pick it up and just leaf through it and remember how I enjoyed the book. So I can't think of anything specific for that one, to be honest. Number 3, science. What was the last science-related book you read? I haven't actually read any pure, only science books for a long, long time. Like, we're talking years, maybe a decade or more. What I have read recently is, because I pick up books on essays. And if I find a book of 19th century sort of science essays, like I have done, where somebody's written an essay on butterflies, because I'm interested in them, so I'll buy that or read that, or bats or bees or something like that, little essays. So I'll read essays, but not specifically books. Or I might read an article if I see it somewhere regarding those subjects. I do have a number of books about science that I have picked up that I intend to read at some point. I've got some stuff like on pond life and just some sort of natural history type things. A few things of scientists and their sort of groups, their clubs type things I find interesting. And I've got a history. I think it's a Thames and Hudson history of sort of science, and I've got a few other things on astronomy. There's more history of astronomy and things like that, how it developed, and things like I don't have Cosmos, but I do want to get. Well, I no longer have it. I used to have it, and I've read it. And other Carl Sagan books that I pick up. I thoroughly enjoyed his books. Dragons of Eden was fantastic. Speculations on the evolution of human intelligence. I think that was the subtitle of it, which I found fascinating. But it's years, as I say, more than a decade since I read these. Number 4, social studies. Share a book from your TBR that is translated or deals with the government. I don't think I got anything that's on the radar that sort of deals with the government. I do have, like I showed in my recent acquisitions, translation of poetry by Wang Wai. Um, poetry and poetry and prose. It's 701 to early part of the 8th century AD or CE, and it's translated from the Chinese, mostly poetry, um, and just great poetry. And it's got the Chinese down to one side, and then translations with notes on the other, and it's fantastic stuff. Again, this stuff I read sort of piecemeal, especially when I get it. I'll leaf through and probably spend in total before I put it fully on the shelf a few hours with it at the very least, and then go back to it when the interest strikes. Number five, I think that's it. Yeah, number five, exploratories. Which category of extra non-core classes did you take the most of in high school? I would say that was history, because I took every history class, and then I took some geography classes that were sort of verging on sort of history as well, that sort of impinged on it. But history would be because there was, like, for I had to do a grade 13 before getting into university, and I had to do this quickly. And I mentioned the trouble that I had with English classes. So a teacher that I sparred with and despised, basically, for English, was going to teach the grade 13 English class. So the university that I was applying to for archaeology just said English was recommended, not required. So I didn't do it. So I started to, and then I just ran into, like, it was like a blockhead. It was like any little thing, and he was picking on any little thing that I said, or would make snide comments. He was a bully. So I just sidestepped him and just left the class. And I took, let me see, in that one there was an ancient history course. There was a Canadian history course that I took, an American history course that I took, and then I took, instead of the English course, so that was three, that was four, and then I had to have 6 credits. The other two that I had was I had biology, and I had a historical geography class, sort of historical world geography class. So that was 5. The 6 would have been the English, but I substituted that with a what do they call those? That you don't go to class for. I'm sorry, my mind, it's lack of sleep. My memory has really diminished very quickly here. Um, it's something you don't go to class for. You do it by post, basically. It was at the time. So I'd fill out the questions for each lesson, send it back, get it marked. Correspondence course, that's it. I knew I'd get it eventually. Correspondence course. So that was in European history. I had to really do some finessing and talking because this was getting late in the summer. And normally you're supposed to have this for, I don't know, 13 weeks or 15 weeks. I only had like 2 weeks to do this. And I said, well, let me do it. So I got the whole stack of everything. And then I'm going through and I'm going, bloody hell, this is too much to read. I can't do it in the time and work at the same time. So what I did was I just went through the questions and going, okay, I know the answer to that one. I can get that answer quickly. Oh, that one's going to take too long. Let me skip that one. So I did that all the way through, and I passed it. I passed it with flying colors because I had to do an exam too, which I had to force them to get me into the exam that quickly as well. So everything went well. So yeah, so that's sort of the history. So I took Basically, it was, yeah, 4 history courses for grade 13, and biology and historical geography. So, in a sense, 5 histories in some ways. Let me see. Number 6, Common Core. Share a good pairing of a fiction and a nonfiction book. Ooh. Find that a little difficult. Well, in some ways difficult, because I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than books that I've read. Like I am fascinated with the explorer Sir Richard Francis Burton, and anytime he appeared, because he's been quite common in fiction a lot of times. The Philip Jose Farmer did a Riverworld series with him, and there was the steampunk series with Burton and Swinburne, Algernon Swinburne, the poet. So those kind of things, when there's a historical character like that I'm interested in, I think a good pairing with those is about a good biography, or many more than one biography, um, to go along with that, to sort of see how the writer has he captured the character, and you probably find many things that there's little bits and pieces in the story that are sort of gleamed from adventures that Burton had, and I find that, and I've done that with a few other things, and or if it's a with a historical context, I would read about the historical the real history book along with it. So those are the kind of pairings that I would make with fiction and nonfiction. It's that type of thing. Um, Number 7, research. What was the last topic that inspired you to seek out books so you could read up on it? The last one that sort of rekindled an interest was Jack at the Rambling Raconteur. Did a few things about the Barbary Coast. I've always had an interest in it, but I've never read anything about it. And the interest, as I mentioned in a comment to him, stemmed from a 1970s, I think it is, short-lived TV series. Maybe it just lasted one season or hardly a few episodes, with William Shatner, called The Barbary Coast. And I've always been fascinating in that sort of period of late 19th century San Francisco area. But I've never, ever, ever followed up on it. So that sort of has made me think, maybe I should. Now it's piqued interest again, in the period. So I might look for a book on the Barbary Coast area of that time, sort of late, 1890s even, of San Francisco, and especially with the underground and all that kind of stuff, the crime elements. So that's the kind of thing, but it does happen like that with me. I'll even be watching something. I go, oh, that's interesting, yeah, and I'll look more into it, and I'll get into a few books about it. But I think this is the last thing that sort of piqued interest that I can think of at the moment. Um, and then, what subject area would you teach if you were a teacher? Um, History definitely would be one thing, and it all related, like even archaeology. But history would definitely be there, and I think film studies. Film studies would. I would stay away from English studies, even though I'd love to take more courses in English and English studies or literature, and things like that. But I sometimes run afoul of, as I mentioned, especially. But I don't think high school I shouldn't tar. Excuse me. Sort of universities in the same way, because I think the teachers I had were just, they were poor teachers basically, um, and they were going by a set checklist, and that I don't care for. So I think history and film studies would be, especially silent film, nothing, or classic film, nothing modern. That's for sure. Number 9 is share a photo from your school days. That's restricted information. Number 10, tag some fellow lifelong learners. I think most have been tagged. Like Steve's tagged everybody that I would, and I've noticed a few other people have done this that I would then tag. I'm not sure if Jack has done this at the Rabbling Raconteur tour, because I mentioned you, and you are a teacher, so yeah. So if you haven't done this, Jack, and you're watching this, feel free to do it, because that's about the only one that else that pops out. Anybody else, I think has been tagged or has done it that I can think of. Anyway, I will end it there. BookTube, short tag, but it's taken me 21 minutes to do. And I say I'm not promising anything, but I'll try to make as many videos as I can. Some other topics that I know it's been asked to continue with the shelf tours, but the problem is I've got to get stuff put up on shelves, and it's just too much. There's lack of space to move around to get stuff, or even to get in front of shelves that I haven't dealt with yet. But I'll do my best to figure out something, maybe to highlight a few books that are interesting, and that might be easier to do. But anyway, I'll leave it there, BookTube. I hope everybody's doing well and having a good week. And this is sort of the historical Sean saying goodbye, because I'm doing this on Sunday, but I'm posting it on Tuesday. Take care, BookTube.